Okay, honey, tuck in now. It's way past your bedtime.
Daddy, what's that?
What, honey?
I hear something.
It's just a dog barking. Now go to sleep.
I'm gonna have bad dreams.
No, you won't. Now, come on now. It's been a long day.
What's that?
It's just a car down on the street. You want some water before you go to sleep?
Yeah.
Okay, here you go.
Daddy, what if I do have bad dreams?
You won't. And you know why?
Why?
'Cause that water you're drinking is magic water.
Magic water?
That's right. Magic water from a magic lake.
A magic lake?
High up in the mountains, there's a beautiful lake, and every summer, the children from the nearby village come to play and swim in the lake every day. They laugh and they sing with their friends and their brothers and sisters and their parents, and all the love and laughter make it a magical place. And when autumn comes, the people of the village come to the lake for long walks on the shore and to have picnics. The children play in the leaves and skip stones on the water, and all the love and laughter of the children stays right there in the magic lake. The winter is the best of all. When the magic lake freezes, everyone in the village goes ice skating, and they go sledding on the mountain, and they build snow creatures and throw snowballs, and they laugh and play all winter long, and all the laughter and love stays right there in the snow and the ice of the magic lake. And then, in the springtime, the days get warmer and the sun melts all the snow and ice into water that runs down the mountain into streams and rivers, and all the laughter and the love stays right there in the water. And anyone who drinks that water from the magic lake is filled with laughter and love and can never have bad dreams. And you know what's the most magical of all about the magic water? It never runs out. The more people drink, the more there is for everyone.
This magic water?
That's right.
And magic lake really real, but true?
Yep.
What's that?
That? Oh, it's the NeoRadio Hour. Hi, I'm Peter Donalds. This is the NeoRadio Hour, home of independent writers, musicians, and home tapers, the folk artists of the electronic age. We've got the usual eclectic mix of scenes, stories, and sound sculpture tonight, along with a few Neo bits from our own studios. The caustic yet affable Mr. Sunshine is along for the ride, and we'll listen in on some radio jihad. Also, before the hour is over, Episode 3 of the Information Age. And conversation, this week with licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Mac Green. Don't go to bed yet. 1 hour to go. The Neo Radio Hour. Independent. Audio. Art.
In the county Tyrone near the town of Dungannon, a beauty, Bob Williamson lived, a weaver betrayed, and always athwart him was a stout orange blade. Old songs, the meaning of their words forgotten. On the 12th of July as it yearly
the melody
did come, Bob Williamson
remains.
Played with the great big drum. You may talk of your harp, your piano or lute, but there's none could compare with the old orange flute. I'm hoping that someday in Belfast, that this Orange Day, it'll just be a big hoot for everybody. You gotta stop carrying around all that hate, my dear cousins. Turned papish himself and forsook the old cause, which gave us our freedom, religion, and laws. If you're gonna hold on to anything, hold on to the melody.
Back to the phones. Let's go to John. You're on KOBJ AM.
Good morning, Eric. I have a question for Tom Parsons. I have a locale that I like to visit, and I'm wondering if maybe there's a way you could suggest for me that would be safer and less expensive than what I've been doing, because it's, by the very nature of the locale, it's actually a little dangerous. It's a bit hair-raising.
Well, where are we trying to go to?
The fourth dimension.
What?
Do you have any suggestions about that?
Where? I think John has had a little airline fuel for breakfast this morning. Let's go to SD. You're on KOBJ AM. All right, Sue, I'm going to try to get your call in. We have about a minute and a half.
Okay, well, I'll make it quick. I'm trying to get a cheaper way to get back and forth from Kansas City. I'm interested in a job up there. It's with an AM radio station that isn't run by conservative rednecks.
Right? I don't think you need to answer that.
What are you going to be traveling?
I don't think she's going to be traveling anywhere. I'll explain that to you off the air. All right, well, Tom,
Yeah. Well, you know, I had a comment. I was looking at my Bible this morning and kind of wish that Eric could be here to hear this, because...
You reckon you'd raise a hair, too?
Well, he's a Jew, and I was looking at the Old Testament. I know he could appreciate this, but, you know, the Bible's here in First Naphtali 5 and 12 is talking about the how the young men were prepared for the adult life. It says that in those days when the men were gathered round about on the field of battle, all them that were up there against Napham and Shemesh, it says that all young men dressed for battle gathered around the Nakatachinko for the ritual manhood called the Nonatiah. And
I'm almost afraid to ask what that is.
Well, it was a ritual that they did to make sure that the young men were ready to go into battle and kill men, women, and children for the Lord Jehovah. And it says here that the priest would do a blessing that went something like Mashi Malakandi I Aratandi Mashakanda Ku Tapasandi I Mikalakashindi. Shimalakomoda, Ahadi Amatia, Ashimakalakanda. Jehovah is Lord, Mati Makalanda, Ishimika.
Okay, we don't need a sermon. I didn't mean to cut you off, but yet again I did. Because, I didn't understand a word he was saying. Dave, you're a great guy, but we kind of have to keep it to a situation that we don't just really go off the deep end.
Radio Hour.
Colleen by the Mudsharks. Before that, Radio Jihad from Brother Russell Ministries. It's the NeoRadio Hour. Independent audio art. I'm Peter Donaldson. It's time now for episode 3 of The Information Age. Having conquered the treacherously slow footing of the massive tangled information maze for nearly a week, my partner Smith and I made good progress until Smith was accidentally exposed to a sudden burst of contamination from a ruptured pipeline. No longer capable of rational thought, Smith bolted off the main trail to follow a whim. Day 15. I have no choice. As much as I want to continue my search for the legendary free flow of information, I know I must go after Smith, putting the entire mission at risk. Smith!
Hello?
Smith!
Hello? Am I on the air? Hello? Am I on the air?
Excuse me.
Am I on?
Are you on what?
Hey, you're not the host. I already talked to a producer. What the hell is this?
I'm looking for my friend. I was just wondering if you've seen him.
Look, I haven't seen anybody in years.
Excuse me, but what's wrong with your voice?
Hello? What? What are you talking about?
What's wrong
Look, buddy, I don't know what your problem is, but whatever it is, I'm not interested. You know, I've paid my dues, I worked hard to get where I am, and you're just gonna have to get off your lazy butt and do the same.
Look, where am I?
AM Talk Radioville.
AM Talk Radioville?
Well, actually, we're just a tiny village on the outskirts of AM Talk Radioville. This is AM Talk Radio Caller Junction.
AM Talk Radio Caller Junction.
You must be a first-time caller. Get in line, pal.
Look, this is the only leg of the information pipeline into your area. My friend must have been
Well, of course there's only one pipeline in. What are you, a multiculturalist or something?
I'm just trying to find my friend. We're searching for the free flow of information.
Well, congratulations, because here we are.
Where?
The ultimate free flow of information. AM Talk Radio.
The man paused with pride at this statement, and for the first time I noticed his very odd features. He had a large cavernous mouth, a sloping forehead, small squinting eyes. One ear was covered by the earpiece of a phone, which itself was covered by the man's own skin. The other ear had shrunken away, I suppose for lack of use. With all due respect, sir, I don't believe this is the free flow of information. I mean, there's only this one tiny line that feeds into your area.
Well, it's the only one that matters.
I've seen a great deal more on my journey. You could see it yourself. It's right over there on the horizon.
Look, the rest ain't information, son. It's just a lot of liberal lies, propaganda, and smut.
If you just turn around...
Look, I don't have to look. We got no interest in that kind of garbage here in AM Talk Radioville.
Still, I can't help but think...
Look, if you're impressed with size and numbers, you just keep going. We've only got this itty-bitty pipeline coming in, but just down the way we got 1 million lines going out, some as big as houses. And come to think of it, that's where your friend must be, you know? You better hurry if you want to catch him. You'll never find him once he gets in the middle of all that.
Day 16. At least I think it's day 16. The sun never sets on the information pipeline. I followed the narrow and rusted information line, along the way passing a handful of AM Talk Radio callers, all with the same large mouths, sloped foreheads, and mutated ears. The tiny rigid pipe fed into a brown, open rectangular vat about the size of a small tool shed, which stood on the side of a large hill. The stagnant, foul-smelling mix of information, opinion, and prejudice boiled in the heat of the constant sun till it bubbled over. The runoff spilled down the muddy hill into a makeshift dam, which dispersed the concoction into 1,000 underground tunnels, each one sucking the soiled and odorous slime into its canal, sending the sludge and vapors on to its destination. That's when I saw him. Smith. It's the NeoRadio hour.
Ticky-tacky houses spread like a loaf of bread, having spilled from its plastic wrapper across the land. Every day the cars would pull up and pull away as quickly, going here and going there. In one house, an old lady sat staring out the window, waiting for the phone to ring. And when it did, she would not answer it. Her hands would shake. Her eyes would nervously look around. And she call for her kittens. Be kind to old lady Jitters. She's sitting inside of us all. She's hiding deep inside of us men and women. Every time you hear that phone ring, every time you hear the doorbell, or the boss call, or the teacher speak, or the wind blow, or the dog bark, you get the jitters. Tell me truly, you get the jitters. Tell me truly. You don't want to tell anybody. I know how it is. I get the jitters too, don't you? The unknown is big, too big. New things are unbelievable. When I was born, and I first felt the light in the air, I got the jitters. I cried. Hell, they spanked me to make me cry. Didn't you? Don't we all, didn't you? Get the jitters. The door is knocked. The postman wants to leave a note, a letter from the far, far distant past. Someone remembered her. But no one answered. No one answered. Answer the phone. Answer the door. It's you. It's you who's knocking.
A gold medal moment.
How did you, Boris?
Thinking, brat. Slotsky. Boris says you make 10, you don't make 9.5, 9.8, 9.9, 9.10, I want.
Sorry, Boris. I'll do better.
You do better with my belt on your butt, Ski. A gold medal moment.
Day was fine and the world was fair. The western wind blew throughout and sun sailed that day. Oh, we out in the country, yeah. I looked up, oh, in the sky, saw 12 clouds fly by over the lake, yeah. Diamonds in my eyes. And it shows I'm singing this song. When we got to the outside, since Grandma was gone. So we walked round through the gate, and Bruce looked at me and said, I think, yeah, 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 I think we're in heaven. 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 Oh, well, I think, don't you know that I think we're in heaven. Giggle with the inchworm as she grows by. Give it up low and we're dance high out here. Oh, we out in the country. Giving it up as we dive in the lake. She loves and sighs, make no mistake out here. sure as I'm singing this song, oh, when we got to the house, Allison's grandma was gone. So we walked round through the gate, and Bruce looked at me and said, I think, yeah, 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 I think we're in heaven. Heaven, yeah, yeah, yeah. Heaven, oh, well, I think, you know that I think we're in heaven. Tell me, is it true that I'm in love with you in the merriest of ways? I'm very happy, my sweet, sweet baby, and I'll tell you one of the ways. Sitting there, breathing the air, I'm feeling so fine. Hold you in my thoughts, hold you in my arms. I know that you're mine. So we sing and we paint the air, flying to paradise without a care out there. Oh, in the country, taste the bread, all it does us a favor. We eat by the lake, we dance in the flavors out here. Oh, way out in the country, and it sure as I'm singing this song, when we got to the house, Allison's grandma was gone. So we walked round through the gate, and Bruce looked at me and said, I think, oh, I think we're in heaven. Oh, heaven. Heaven. Oh, well, I think, oh, you know that I think we're in heaven. I am here. I think we're in heaven. I have long hair. I think we're in heaven. We make music out here. I think we're in heaven. I got nothing to fear. I think we're in. I think that we are in. I think that we are in heaven. Heaven. Heaven.
It's the NeoRadio Hour. That was Aunt Betsy, one of our favorite bands. Before that, the Intellectual Monarchs, and sandwiched in between there, another gold medal moment. I'm Peter Donalds, and I'm stopping here just for a moment to remind you that most everything you hear on the program comes to us from independent contributing artists, writers, actors, audio artists, performance artists, poets, musicians. We call them the folk artists of the electronic age. And we hope that you would send us your work or your ideas. If you have something on tape, or even better, if we've inspired you to create something, that would make us real happy. So send it along on cassette. We can also take DAT, or we could take it in written form too, and we could have a go at recording it in our own studios here, our palatial studios at the NeoRadio Hour. We are just about at the halfway point. There's another half hour to go. As usual, stick around. You don't want to miss the comments of Mr. Sunshine. Right now we're going to go to Conversation. This week in Conversation, it's Dr. Mac Green. You are listening to the NeoRadio Hour, independent audio art. Our conversation started with a discussion of some of the wackos in his industry. He wanted to make sure I mentioned he's a licensed clinical psychologist.
A lot of harm to the field because you have people just riding off on some hobby horse.
Are there any hard numbers or even, I don't know, speculation on the percentage of people doing this kind of thing, or?
In one of my professional organizations, they surveyed the membership and found out that about 25% of the membership believed in the validity of some pretty questionable techniques, and that was pretty alarming. So, as you can guess, the professional organization is doing a lot right now to try to clean that up.
What should a patient look for if they're in this kind of a situation?
I always advise people to ask questions on the phone, and they should, for instance, ask, what are the therapists qualified to treat? And because for some things like depression and anxiety and phobias, and even relationship problems, some people are just much more skillful than other people.
Oh God, that's such a hard thing to do, though. I mean, as a patient.
As a patient.
I mean, the authority is squarely in the therapist or the doctor's corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly how it plays out. Most patients are suffering. They may be embarrassed about making that phone call, and it's just like, whew, I made the phone call. I've got an appointment. And the idea of being assertive and asking questions is just beyond most people in those circumstances.
And I would guess, I wouldn't speak for you, but I bet wouldn't a lot of doctors actually kind of take offense at that?
Yeah, actually they do. Yep.
I had a professor in college. I was grad school in interdisciplinary arts. So I had this sort of avant-garde artist / professor in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of had doubts about her, and I very nicely on the first or second day of class asked her about her background, and she just really got mad at me. She got serious attitude, and the next class session she comes in with a resume about an inch and a half thick, and she walks over to my desk and just plops it down on my desk. I believe you were wondering about my qualifications. It was amazing.
Yeah, that's a great story. But I encourage people to do that in general because there's, we're a nation of self-made people, so there's a lot of people out there making themselves up out of pretty thin material.
Especially in the world of art.
Yeah, absolutely.
which is my world, which is something I sometimes catch myself, or I wonder if I'm doing it. I've got this master's degree in a very dubious subject, and I tend to, and plus I'm always looking for work, so making myself up is a hobby for me. It's a pastime.
Yeah, exactly, and it's like I said, it's also an American pastime to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're all about. So there's pros and cons. I mean, on the one hand, I'm a great believer in new beginnings and constantly recreating ourselves. But on the other hand, I think you have to be able to demonstrate competence and demonstrate a track record.
Yeah, which is more and more kind of vague in the arts and in the sort of in the field of social sciences and therapy and psychology and sociology and the whole kind of pseudoscience, pseudo philosophy world.
Right.
of self-help books and gurus and all of it.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of gray areas and a lot of room for fudging, and then we move toward credentialing, and like I said, credentialing didn't prevent 1/4 of the people in my organization from endorsing these dubious things. And then I was hearing an interview on the radio yesterday about Ginsburg's death. And Ginsburg was very belatedly honored by the arts establishment. But most of the people that he sponsored and that he hung out with and, have never been accepted by the establishment. And, as a kind of a credentialing, I mean, he was kind of credentialed as a legitimate poet, but other poets, never were.
Mm-hmm. Which also, I don't want to go off in that direction, but that's also kind of a double-edged sword. To be recognized, and then all of a sudden you're part of the other team.
Yeah, right.
And the whole idea of being credentialed kind of marks you as a sellout or as part of the you're part of the establishment now.
Yeah, exactly. And some people can pull that off and still maintain their creative freedom after they've done that. But when comfort and privilege start taking over, people start getting stale. That's my personal prejudice.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the subject of art, you've mentioned before to me about the use of psychoanalysis in art. Would you tell me what you were talking about there?
Okay. It's been an interest of mine because I was originally trained with a group of psychoanalytic people.
You know, before we do this, just real quick, a thumbnail sketch of what psychoanalysis is.
Okay,
so we know what we're talking about.
Psychoanalysis, in general, are those psychotherapies, it's a plural, group of psychotherapies that are descended from Sigmund Freud. And in general, that means that they base everything on interpretation of symbols. So they view what you see is not what you get. What you see is just a symbol that there's something else heavy going on behind the scenes. And so and their method then is interpretation of just about everything as indicating, something profound or mystifying or, weird or wild. But it's all these more dramatic realities are hidden, and you need the psychoanalyst to guide you through this journey through your personal symbols to find out the deep reality.
And what's the current status of this practice? Is it still well accepted? Is it out of fashion? Or?
Both. It's primarily found in the big cities. New York is the world capital of psychoanalysis, and close behind it is Chicago and Los Angeles. And so you still have, like in New York City, it's still a status symbol to have a shrink, kind of the Woody Allen thing, and Woody Allen, of course, satirizes this, but it really is true. If you spend much time in New York, you'll find people talking about their analyst in conversation, and so that's a.
Yeah, actually, that makes me think it's kind of a regionalism, because in the Midwest, I hear people talk about their therapist.
Mm-hmm.
So in New York, they talk about their analyst.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Like water fountain and bubbler.
Yeah, yeah. And it's different because in the Midwest, people are much more practical, and they want kind of nuts and bolts therapy. They want somebody who can, fix it in 4 sessions. And then they can get back to work. Whereas in New York and Los Angeles,
it just sort of becomes a way of life.
It becomes a way of life, exactly.
Okay, let's take this back to the art world. I can see where it's going. I mean, if it's all about symbolism.
Exactly.
So
what happened was early on, starting in the 20s, writers and painters and literary critics just fell in love with psychoanalysis. I mean, it was just so much fun, and it spawned this whole industry that's been going on for the last 75 years of studying symbols. And I guess the peak of that was the Hero with 1,000 Faces, the Joseph Campbell stuff. Where he, studied the worldwide prevalence of symbols. So it became almost like a secular religion, because since the world is pregnant with deeper meanings, and anything can indicate those deeper meanings. A tree isn't just a tree. A tree symbolizes being rooted in the earth and reaching for the sky. And that's wonderful. I mean, that you can see that's a very dramatic, and if you're looking for deeper meanings and more significance in life, then it's wonderful to think that the tree in your front yard, is not just a tree.
But we're talking about the tree in my front yard, or are we talking about the tree in the painting? Is the tree itself is a symbol of something?
Well, yeah, they don't really.
I'm getting probably a little too metaphysical too quickly here.
Probably, but it's it's on the point because they don't necessarily separate between reality and kind of metaphysical reality. That, so the tree in your front yard and the tree in your dream and the tree in your poem, there's kind of a continuum of reality there.
So is there an historical parallel here with psychoanalysis and the use of symbols and interpretation in art? Did they come together? Which preceded? I mean, as far as I know, in my studies of art, in my whole life, it's always been about symbols,
right,
and impressions,
right, and I guess that's kind of waxed and waned through history. If I can remember some of my art history courses, and there's been these resurgence of symbolic schools in art periodically, I guess, for 1,000 years or more. But the 20th century resurgence of that was fueled by psychoanalysis.
I see.
Because they were able to take symbols and tie everyday reality and really trivial kinds of things into bigger meaning systems. And so it coincided at the same time with the intellectuals and artists losing faith in religion, and this became a new way to find those profound meanings.
Huh. It sounds like it's also just really sort of dangerous territory, to get back to what we were talking about before, just a lot of bogus theories and just a lot of amateurs out there deciding what these symbols are going to be.
Yeah, exactly. And that is dangerous territory. I mean, it's very exciting, but it can just lead you in all kinds of weird directions.
So specifically, how did artists use this? Maybe you could, I don't know if you could cite any examples, but did they just do their own sort of personal work on their own minds with their own help of a psychoanalyst, and then go do their art, or was it a more interactive process with the art itself?
Actually, it became part of the zeitgeist of especially in the 20s through the 50s. So a couple of examples, like Eugene O'Neill's play A Long Day's Journey into Night, is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm.
Is a classic psychoanalytic uncovering of relationship issues in a family, of all kinds of tangled hopes and betrayed hopes, and so that play unfolds as if all the characters are psychoanalyzing each other and themselves. So that's one of the more intense examples of that, and it shows, if you remember that play, I mean, it shows how this psychoanalytic way of thinking can lead to a great intensification of everything.
So what it is then, it's artists sort of consciously using this methodology, if I can use a silly word. Remind me never to use that word again. God, I'm embarrassed I'm so embarrassed that I use that word.
Yeah, that's a great word.
That's a terrible one.
It is silly. Well, I was going to talk about deconstructionism. Because,
I love deconstructionism.
And deconstructionism is just this whole psychoanalytic stream taken into the 1990s. And another of my favorite examples is the Guerrilla Girls. You familiar with them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the Guerrilla Girls are similar. You can see that in general they fit into this thing of first of all, they don't take the surface for granted. So the fact that galleries in New York City are dominated by white males.
Right. Let's tell who the Guerrilla Girls are for people who don't know.
Okay, that's a group of young graphic artists, painters and other kinds of artists in New York City who have a feminist twist because they see see themselves as being excluded from an arts establishment which is dominated by older white males.
Mm-hmm. And they dress up like gorillas.
And they dress up like gorillas,
Yeah.
so there's a pun there.
Right.
So they're doing insurgent political activities.
Right,
So
G-U-E.
Right, so the gorillas dressed like gorillas.
And you know the professor who slapped down her resume?
Mm-hmm.
She was a gorilla girl.
Oh, no kidding.
She helped to start them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. And so the few things that I've seen them do, they use these symbols. So I can't think of any specific examples except the major example of being gorillas means, they're wild, they're fundamental, they're they're kind of tapping into primitive passions,
Right.
as opposed to all these other artists who are sellouts and wear, gray suits and so forth.
Yeah.
And so what they're using is the whole symbolism of primitivism as a way of staking out their territory in what they perceive as being a sterile arts world.
Now, psychoanalysis, whether it's just for just mental health or being used in the social sciences or for art, it seems to have obvious benefits for, as you say, deconstructing, for finding root causes and for exposing situations.
Mm-hmm. What
about the next step of then creating, something growing out of this compost that we've created here? Can psychoanalysis have a positive spin, or is that like the next step? Is that the next generation?
Yeah, I think that the people who are engaged in this symbolic work think that is creative. What they are is they're revivifying the world by showing that it's not just all suburban and bourgeois. So
yeah, I've always kind of wondered about that though, because I find great benefit in it. I'm looking for the next step,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not sure that deconstructing alone is the full picture. I think it's the yin yang, the negative, the positive. It's the negative.
Right. Yeah. Okay. You deconstruct and then you have to construct.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the constructing is harder. Deconstructing is easy and fun.
Mm-hmm.
It's like being satirical or sarcastic. It's pretty easy.
Exactly.
And pretty fun
exactly.
to do.
That they ultimately feed cynicism and leave us prey to weird cult-like systems of thinking.
Yeah. See, mine wasn't meant as a criticism at all. I think it's really absolutely a necessary step,
mm-hmm.
and a really important one.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think it's one step and not the next.
Yeah. The followers of Carl Jung are very much into the construction step. They call it transpersonal psychology, and they believe that they're creating a spiritual reality, or they're helping us discover the spiritual reality.
And that's where it does take a really a wide turn that we won't really take now. But
okay.
but we know what we're talking about. That's when it gets into sort of New Age issues, and everything seems to get all mixed up. Spirituality and psychology and philosophy and
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and it strays pretty far away from empirical reality at that point.
Yeah. Would you recommend therapy or psychoanalysis or psychotherapy or whatever would you recommend it for artists? This question of I might be opening up a whole new pot here. The question of the crazy artist, the Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Is an artist better off a little crazy?
Other people might not agree with this, but I think that suffering is necessary not just for artists, but I think to be a fully developed human being, suffering is necessary. It deepens us, it develops empathy, it makes us grapple with big questions. So I certainly wouldn't want to see an artist committing suicide or doing weird things, destructive things. But on the other hand, I think that those conflicts and twisted attitudes can be fuel for creativity.
And that's where we'll leave it for now. In conversation on the NeoRadio Hour this week, that was licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Mac Green. This is the NeoRadio Hour, independent audio art. I'm Peter Donalds. We're supposed to be talking with Mr. Sunshine right now, speaking of
I'm here.
suffering artists.
I'm here.
But,
Okay. Don't worry. Man, I was listening on the way over. That was really boring stuff, Donald.
You know, Mr. Sunshine, you
that
come
interview?
in...
Man, where'd you find this
You come
guy?
in late, and then...
And it went so long. You still got time for me?
Yeah, we got plenty of time. Calm
Yeah,
down.
okay. Well, anyway, I've got this great idea.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've got all this wonderful technology, instant interactive communications, satellites, the internet, the web, et cetera, ad nauseum, right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so far, so good. But to tell you the truth, I don't see many advantages for common Neanderthals like me and you.
You know, speak for yourself, Mr.
Hey, you want to hear this or not?
What, you mean this is it?
All right, here's my idea for this technology. Within a couple of years, we're all going to have digital television. Now, here's a feature I'd like on my new set. Say I'm watching This Week on ABC. By the way, that just doesn't sound right, does it? It's This Week with David Brinkley. But since Brinkley is the only person on television older than radio, I guess it was time to phase the guy out. Okay, anyway. You're watching This Week with Sam and Cokie and George and some hotshot writer auditioning for the McLaughlin Group. These days, political writers are like stand-up comics, aren't they? Trying to get a series, right? So you work the news trenches until the network anoints you with your own TV gig. You get a guest shot on a panel, you know, something on CNN or PBS, Washington Week. The chair next to Mark Shields on the NewsHour is a particularly hot property at the moment. Unless David Gergen is back. I can't keep track of this guy, hopping back and forth between magazines, TV, and the White House. You remember David Gergen, right? Gergen and Shields? Before it was Shields and Gigot. Before that it was Shields and Yarnell, I think. Anyway, if you're a journalist and you do well on a panel, maybe you become a regular. And for the creme de la creme, your own show. Ooh, see, then you're a celebrity. Like Sam and Cokie and George and Larry and Ted and Ted's hair and well, like Bill and Hillary and Newt for that matter and Trent and whoever the new lot will be after the next election. Now, you can all hang out together in the makeup room and tell jokes and eat donuts during commercial breaks.
Mr. Sunshine, are you going
to...
to...
I started out talking about new information technology,
Yeah.
and I'll bet you think I've wandered off the subject.
Well, yes.
Well, I didn't. Stop second-guessing me, okay? All right, here's the deal.
Sorry.
When one of these loudmouths, and by the way, it's my goal in life to join their ranks, when one of these loudmouths starts ranting about the latest machinations of their fellow celebrities, well, my new digital television would have a keyboard and a mouse with which I could instantly call up a window with a complete profile and biography of the person doing the ranting. Now, wouldn't that be handy? Oh, see, look. Wolf Blitzer plays tennis with Mike McCurry every morning. Isn't that interesting? Now, here we go. Chris Matthews and Donna Shalala belonged to the same San Diego cult in the 60s until Chris left to be a media consultant for Philip Morris, but was later fired for scrawling racial epithets on a Joe Camel billboard on I-5 in Chula Vista. See, it'd be the kind of stuff you could research on your own if you had no job and no life. Most of it would come from public records, like, you know, when you buy property or get divorced. The juicier bits might take a little digging, but, you know, there are lots of overeducated, underemployed liberal arts majors out there who are real good at research and have lots of time on their hands. Now, say if I were talking right now, not on the radio, but chatting amiably with Charles Grodin on CNBC about, O.J. Simpson. Well, you could enter Mr. Sunshine, and up would come my bio and profile. A long list of failed funding requests from mainstream foundations, which explains my resentment of all things mainstream, resulting in my sordid history of butt-kissing and pandering to radical left-wing think tanks. There would be my college records, my grades, my overindulgence in Marxist studies, my reprimand for inciting a group of touring high school students to riot after the Rodney King verdict, my job history, which reveals my last legitimate employment as a singing poodle in a high-camp comedy revue in San Francisco's North Beach. See, you find out this kind of information about a person in the media, and their opinion is suddenly a little less likely to just drop and stick. Yep, that's Charles Grodin, all right. So, that's my idea. A digital window on the TV set with instant information on the information brokers. A little ammunition for viewers to exercise their power of discernment. Supposedly, there are people out there who know about electronics and technology and business and law and all that kind of BS necessary to take my little idea and turn it into an American institution. Well, be my guest. Take it. It's all yours. This is Mr. Sunshine.
The NeoRadio Hour is written and produced by Peter Donalds and Frank Skillman, along with resident artist Leon Rosen. Thanks to our contributing artists this week, Brother Russell, the Mudsharks, the Intellectual Monarchs, and Aunt Betsy. Thanks also to the Phosphines, Peter Rubisow, and Seth Evans. In conversation, it was licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Mac Green. If you are an artist, a writer, a musician, an actor, someone with some interesting ideas, we want to hear from you. Most of what you hear on the program does come to us from independent contributing artists. Time's up for now. Thanks for listening. I hope you taped it. I'm Peter Donald.